Hi, and welcome to Answers News for March 11th, 2019. I'm Avery Foley. I'm here with Bodie Hodge and Dr. Georgia Perta. And we have an awesome studio audience here with us as well today. You guys want to clap and let yourselves be heard?
Here you. All right.
Starting to get all these spring break crowds in.
Yes,
This officially begins our season, basically, which will run through till November, pretty much here at the Creation Museum. So it's nice to see all these faces. And,
Yeah.
Indeed.
And,
Exciting.
And so, but that being said, I know that summer is coming upon us shortly. Hopefully, hopefully it will warm up here eventually. But in thinking about the next school year,
Not already.
yeah. So something that we are really
this.
happy to offer here at the Creation Museum is lab experiences for high schoolers, and so specifically for homeschoolers who are in high school and need that lab experience. And so this year we offered biology, but next school year, starting in fall in 2019, we'll be offering biology, chemistry, physics, and forensic science. So it's
super exciting.
12 sessions that are 4 hours, basically 4 or 5 hours each throughout the school year. And we are building a brand new lab that they will be hosted in. So we're really excited about that. So we can do those things that we need to do. So if you have interest in that, we'll put a link up there if you're on the on Facebook, and you can also go to the website and just type in high school labs or something like that, and it should come up. And so professionally instructed, our physics lab is going to be taught by Dr. Danny Faulkner, and so we have a lot of, and our forensic science lab is taught by a forensic scientist. So lots of really great information for them. So if you want more information on that, highly encourage you to check it out.
Yeah,
So,
they're going to be really cool.
Okay, so
All
I think everybody's getting on. I don't know. I'm not paying attention because I'm talking. So.
We
That's
see
the problem.
Indiana, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas.
Great. All right.
Maryland.
Well, let's go ahead and get started here.
All right.
Take it away, Avery.
All right. Scientists have witnessed a single-celled algae evolve into a multicellular organism.
Boy, titles, huh?
Yeah, this is a very exciting headline. And the article goes on to state that scientists have actually seen in real time a single-cell organism evolve into a multicellular organism. So Georgia, you looked up the actual paper on this, and is the headline a bit sensationalistic, or?
I just knew. When I read it, I thought, what? Okay, because it would not be an easy task to start unicellular and become multicellular.
And they say it happened in 50 weeks, triggered by the introduction of a simple predator.
A lot of stuff's going to have to happen, and considering there's no genetic mechanism to add information to do that, I was highly suspicious. And so it turns out all this is happening here is the unicellular organisms are coming together to form one giant blob, okay? And that's called a colony. And algae do that a lot, okay? They form colonies.
So this isn't a big deal. They're just hanging out.
Yeah, they're just hanging out
They're not
together.
becoming multicellular. You see, in an evolutionary worldview, to start with a single-celled organism, you got to add the others, but then it needs to become like a composite unity. It's got to become a single multicellular unit, and that's not what's happening. They're just getting together.
Yeah, and sometimes when they do form colonies, they do specialize. So some cells will do one thing, other cells will do another thing. And like if when you have a city and you have lots of people doing different parts and different roles, but it's still not multicellular.
Well, I like to think of it like the back row of a Baptist church. You know, they all congregate there and they do different things. Same sort of thing, right? Gotta have a little fun, right?
So it's really not. I mean, even though they say over and over again, because one of the claims we always make against evolution is, well, it's not been observed. Well, they would say, well, it can't be observed because it happens over millions of years, and you can't possibly observe that. So they're always looking for ways to kind of show that, and this is one of the ways that they're trying to say that supposedly. Oh yes, we have witnessed it, but it turns out to be nothing more than just a colony.
Wow.
And that's it.
Yeah,
That's
so
all it
the
is.
headline's a bit sensationalistic. It doesn't exactly describe what the research actually found.
Yeah.
So scientists have not witnessed a single-celled algae evolve into a multicellular organism.
Yeah.
Indeed,
Not at all.
no.
That would have been it.
Somebody on here says, hello, AIG, stuck in the airport in Montgomery, Alabama. So glad to have you all to help me pass the time. So we're glad to help you in
We've
your
all spent
adventure.
some time in airports. So
Yeah.
If you're
some of you
still
guys
stuck
probably
there
have
after the episode ends, you can always go on YouTube and watch archived episodes. So
There you go.
Yeah.
it'll keep you busy for a few hours anyway.
There you go.
It's like, what, 2 years worth, 3 years worth?
Okay. All right, next one.
Extraordinarily rare semi-identical twins were born in Australia. So of course everybody's heard of identical twins and everybody's heard of fraternal twins. These are semi-identical twins, also known as Sesquizygotic twins. Say that 5 times fast. I probably didn't even say it right. But
Yeah, I would have called it Sesquizygotic, is probably that, right?
that's probably how you say it.
I don't know.
We'll go with that.
She's Canadian. We'll let her get by.
That's how you pronounce
that's
it in
a Canadian
Canadian.
accent.
Yeah. So this is talking about twins where they share the same 100% of the same maternal DNA, but they only share 78% paternal DNA because one egg was fertilized by 2 separate sperm, which is why one twin's a girl and one twin's a boy.
Right, so in all my years of being a geneticist, I have never heard of this before. This was a first for me. And so what happens is normally when one sperm penetrates the egg and makes contact with it, the sperm or the egg literally becomes impenetrable to any other sperm.
Yeah, it gets really hard, really
Right,
quick.
it changes chemically, so it cannot accept sperm anymore. So it's like, okay, so then how could something like this happen? And what they're postulating, again, they don't know for sure, but they're postulating that these sperm literally hit the egg at the same time. So they both were accepted by the egg instead of just one of them, instead of just one sperm being accepted, which would be extremely rare. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there could have been a defect on the shell part, as well. So, I mean,
Potentially,
there's
yeah.
a number of different things, but I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what makes the most sense is it happened just identical at timing.
Yeah.
So.
And they try to explain, again, they don't exactly know what causes this, so you can tell they're kind of struggling to explain it in the article, because how is it that you would have, I mean, the 100% from the mom makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you have so you basically have 78% from one sperm and 20-some% from the other sperm, which is just really odd. How chromosomally this happens.
Biologically
I'm not really
implausible
sure.
is what they say.
And this causes physical defect as well. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they both of the twins carry XX and XY.
Right, they're mosaic. So some of their cells are XX and some of their cells are XY.
Now, this is not transgender or anything like that.
No,
This is
no.
just a mutation as a result of what occurred at that split
Yeah,
timing.
chromosomal differences, and so they clearly are male or female. I mean, that wasn't it wasn't difficult from that standpoint to tell that. But they did say that sometimes when they have mosaics like that, it can lead to cancer and other things for whatever reason. Again, they're not totally sure, and they had to remove the girl's ovaries as a result because some of the cells already looked precancerous, and she's only 4 years old. So, so there's some things they have to deal with that. But
this is a fascinating thing to study, just to find out more about it, because it's such a unique case. But,
Yeah, and they say it's really rare, but then at the same time they're like, but people wouldn't necessarily, doctors wouldn't be looking for it. So maybe it's not quite as rare as we think it is, because unless one twin's a girl and one twin's a boy, when they look like identical twins at first, then you're like, wait, one's a girl, one's a boy, then then they're going to look for it. But otherwise, they might not look for it. So
you see, this is also a reminder. In a sin-cursed and broken world, things don't work perfect. When God created everything originally, everything was perfect, and it's because of Adam and Eve's sin that now the world is subject to this type of corruption, and we have to deal with that in a sin-cursed world. But just asking to be praying for these twins, and I'd be praying for their family. So
yeah. Very interesting. Somebody on here says, I'm Dr. Cool Purdom, you're Dr. Bodie Puns, and you're Avery Canadian.
wow.
Doctor, we're all doctors.
Wow,
Dr.
that's
Avery
awesome.
Canadian, so somehow we all got PhDs there, so I'm not sure about it.
Move from a master's to a PhD. I'll take that. Someone
right.
from Central Africa watching, which is cool. People from all over. All right. Right-handed or left-handed? Gene expression tells the story of snail evolution. So who knew snails can be right or left-handed even though they don't have hands?
would that be left shell or right shell?
Yes. It refers to...
I'd be shell-shocked at that one.
Wow. It refers to the spiral in their shell, whether it goes clockwise or counterclockwise, and then depending on which way it goes, all of their organs are basically mirrored, whether they're right-handed or left-handed. And of course, this offers insight into the evolution of snails.
Oh, that's awful slimy.
They always like to put that word in there, and I always say, I don't think you know what that word really means. Or you're redefining that word, or you're equivocating that word, because they're still snails. They haven't evolved or changed into something else, nor are they on their way to evolving or changing into something else. They're just merely possibly speciating or just having variation within this particular snail species.
Right,
Because it's just caused by the expression of a gene, right?
It's what?
It's just caused by the expression of a certain gene.
Yeah, it's called the diaph gene. So it's not even a different, like the genetic sequence for that gene is the same in both the right and the left-handed snails. It's just how that gene is expressed or how much is expressed determines whether they're right or they're left-handed. So, and
But see, they want to call them different species, don't they? Which is kind of odd that they would want to do that.
that seems extreme to me because they're just different. I mean, it's just a shifting of the organs. Now, the claim they make is because even the sexual organs are on opposing sides, it might be hard for a right and a left-handed snail to mate because of that. So I do get that, and that's normally what defines a species is they can't mate and produce offspring. So I get that, but at the same time, this seems like a very minor variation. And even I think we had read,
That the females can lay left-handed and right-handed eggs, the same female. So
it's
Right.
probably just a design feature.
so yeah, I don't know
of
that
some
I'd
sort.
call it, but this is something called epigenetics. And so epi means outside of the DNA. So it's actually not, the sequence of the DNA is the same. It's just how the DNA is expressed is different. And that's what causes the differences in the organism. So it's a whole nother level of information that we have in our DNA that shows just how complex we are, all the way down to snails, just how complex we are.
So, in France, they eat these as escargot. Do they eat them like right-handed and left-handed? Can you just separate the two on the platter?
No.
gross.
Oh,
All right.
I've never eaten them. I don't know if any of you guys have ever eaten them.
I have, and they just taste like rubber to me. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't get good ones. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, I've never tried them. I've heard that they're only good because of the garlic butter. And then I just think I just dip breadsticks in garlic butter. Like,
I don't know. All right, so we got a lot of people tuning in on their lunch breaks. I've got somebody from Canada. It must be related to you because it's Mackenzie Foley.
be my sister. Hi,
Okay,
Mackenzie.
there you go. Lunch
go.
break in East Texas. So we got somebody from Australia right now. Ken is actually on his way to Australia right now. Ken Ham, who's the CEO of Answers in Genesis, and so they're hoping to see Ken. They said while he's there later this week.
Yeah,
seeing
you can go on the
Florida.
website to find his speaking events while he's in Australia if you go to the.
Yeah, I'm seeing
Outreach
Florida,
page of our
Michigan, California, the UK, Alabama.
Yeah, great.
I'm all over here.
Somebody's trying to get your puns here, Bodie. So they are learning about species at a snail's pace.
Ooh, good on
That's a
them.
good one. Okay, moving on.
All right. Christian Baker Jack Phillips scores major victory after continuous harassment from LGBT activists. So Jake Phillips, most people would recognize his name. He's been in the news a lot over the last 6.5 years because the state of Colorado basically came after him because he refused to make a cake for a gay wedding because of his religious convictions. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided the case in his favor in a narrow ruling there. And then right after that happened, he's back in court again because he wouldn't make a transgender cake for a gender transition party. And that has just been dropped because it was discovered that there was ongoing hostility towards religious freedom from the state. So it's really good news for Jack Phillips.
Jack
He's
Phillips,
finally able to maybe live his life outside of the courts.
Yeah, apparently the same day that the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to take up that case, they sent someone in, with transgender to basically.
He was
file
clearly
another
being
one.
targeted.
Yeah, he was clearly being targeted.
Yeah.
Which is harassment.
Yeah.
And, that's what caused it. So.
But I think we need to
dropped
realize,
that one.
too, that the Supreme Court ruling in this case, the original Supreme Court ruling, it was a narrow ruling. And what they mean by narrow is the reason they decided in Jack Phillips' favor wasn't because they were all about religious freedom. It was because they felt the state was hostile towards him and harassing towards him. And that's why they cited in favor of him.
So they weren't setting a precedent.
Right. It did not really set a precedent, sadly. I hope eventually there is a case that does that, but this one actually doesn't. And so like I say, while it might be good for him, and because it's the 6.5 years of his life has been devoted to this, how many legal fees, all of that, trying to deal with that. And I'm glad for him, but I don't know overall if this is a major victory. So we'll see. We hope those cases continue to come so that a final decision on that can be made by the Supreme Court. Okay, so this is a related case.
Yeah, this one ties in. A Tennessee woman was denied a cake for a gay wedding, but she's applauding the baker. So the headline sounds really good. And when you read the article, it talks about how this woman went into a Tennessee bake shop and asked for a cake. And then when the woman who runs the cake shop found out it was for a gay wedding, she sent her a text and said, "I wish you the best, but when I realized your union was going to be the same sex, I cannot with my spiritual convictions and beliefs do your cake."
All right, so let's listen to how she describes this case.
We see the comments, but we just keep scrolling.
A lot has happened since Brandy Ray first posted on the Hip Dixon Facebook page last weekend. She posted a text conversation. In it, the owner of Susie's Sweets, Baker Susie Dennison, tells Brandy, "I truly wish you the best, but after realizing that your union will be of the same sex, I cannot with my spiritual conviction and beliefs do your cake."
We didn't ask her to, hey, come dance with us, come party with us, but I guess she didn't want any part of it at all.
Since then, Brandy says someone else has offered to bake a wedding cake for her. And she says she now sees why the baker said no.
I understand that beliefs are important to hold on to, and I can applaud her for sticking to those.
The U.S. Supreme Court stopped short of issuing a broad ruling on a similar case out of Colorado last year, leaving the possibility of a case like Brandy's to head up to the court again. But Brandy says it won't be her case.
I don't think it's worth my time. I think I put enough light on the issue to show that, hey, it's happening here in Tennessee, especially Dixon, and just to raise awareness, really.
Jason Lamb, News Channel 5.
So that's why we said, even though she said she applauded what the baker did, she says, so in other words, yes, okay, but I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to sue her, but I want to make people aware of what she's doing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So she's really opened the door. I mean, she has a right now in our country to marry this woman, to marry another woman. And that is her belief and her right in this country. So she should be upholding the rights of other people not to agree with that.
Right.
And to live out their convictions just like she's living out hers. And so to truly be consistent, she should do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, consider this from a Christian viewpoint. Marriage is between a man and a woman for life. That's the way it was created to be, and the Bible talks further about that sort of thing. So as soon as somebody deviates from that and they want to call it marriage, they want to call this union or contract, whatever they have, as soon as they want to call that marriage, that's actually a pagan ritual, is really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Christian thing.
Right.
And so, she made a comment about, we're not asking you to come dance with us and party with us and that sort of thing. But she's still asking this person to make a cake
to use her
be part and
artistic
parcel
expression,
of her pagan ritual. And this Christian says, no, I don't want to be part of it.
Yeah.
And, I think that's an important issue that Christians need to understand. When people deviate from God and His Word, we've got to step back and go, is this a pagan thing or is this a Christian thing? Do we want to be involved in it? And I think we really do need to judge this based on God and His Word.
And there's not like there aren't other, what I've always said in all these cases, it's not like there aren't other bakers who could make a cake for her. I mean, it's not like she doesn't have, it's not like this is the only cake baker in town and this is the only choice that she has. There are lots of other choices that she actually has, so.
People can always bake their own cake.
Yeah, well, you can. All right.
Senator Kamala Harris advocates for the legalization of prostitution. So this is talking about a senator who is a presidential hopeful for the upcoming election.
And that title really says it.
Yeah, it pretty much sums up
right.
what the article is about. She would basically like to see prostitution between two consenting adults decriminalized.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently she's been pushing for this for over 15 years. She's open to legalize prostitution.
Yeah, I mean, she's against, it's kind of interesting, because when she was the district attorney, she said she was in California, she was advocating for the prostitute and against the Johns and the pimps. So she basically didn't want it as some sort of business, with these people doing that.
She's okay with it being an individual business where
Right.
the prostitute runs her own business, but as soon as they have a boss or something, they don't want to have that. It's really awkward.
Well, it's completely arbitrary. I mean,
Yeah.
where do you draw the line on that?
Yeah.
And we know with all of the sex trafficking that goes on, even here in the U.S. now, where people just literally become convinced that this is the right thing to do or the okay thing to do.
For their only option. They don't have
Or
any
their
other
only
options.
option.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't
many of
protect them.
Yeah, so many people caught in sex trafficking are convinced that, it's okay, it's consensual, you can go do this sort of thing. And so they've been led to believe that type of a worldview, that type of a system.
Or
And
they've
so-
been threatened, like,
Yeah.
because the person holds their passport,
Yeah.
or
You're
they
gonna
have the
consent,
huge
or we're
debt
gonna
over their
do all this
head,
other stuff.
you know, or we'll kill your family back home if you don't do this. So who defines
Yeah.
consent? Who defines who's being exploited?
Right.
It opens up
Yeah.
a whole, and it's just, it's an industry that the U.S. doesn't need.
yeah.
Like,
It opens up a whole can of snails. That's what it does. One of the things it says here in the article is we should really consider that we can't criminalize consensual behavior as long as no one is being harmed. But here's the question. You know, one of these girls who's involved in prostitution or sex trafficking or whatever it might have been, go ask their parents. Are you okay with this? Are you harmed by this? Or what about asking Christians like us, you know, are you happy to see this sort of? No, it actually sounds as it hurts us to see women be forced into this and pushed into this. And even if they think that they're giving consent, that it really does harm their life, it really hurts Christians to see
And
that.
anything that goes against God's design. I mean, clearly God has designed sexual relations between one man and one woman in marriage. And when they go outside of that design, someone is going to get
Somebody's
harmed.
gonna
Even if
be
they claim,
hurt,
oh,
yeah.
no one's getting harmed, it's two consensual adults. You're going against God's design. Someone's getting harmed here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, says, when Avery is not busy being the token millennial, what does she do at AIG?
Well, I'm a writer, so usually I'm behind a computer.
right.
I do a lot of writing for the website, and
Yeah.
I do Answers News a lot and speaking
She's
and
the
stuff.
go-to person for writing. So.
Keep me busy, that's for sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Australian dingo is a unique Australian species in its own right. So Ken isn't here for the Australian item.
Oh, yeah, I know. He's on his way
He's
down.
on his way to
He's not
Australia.
here,
So yeah, maybe he'll run into some dingoes while he's down there. But this one is pretty cool, talking about the Australian, basically the wild dogs, the dingoes, saying that these researchers are basically saying these are not a breed of wild dog. They're their own distinct species, and they want to give them their own species designation in the name and all of that.
Right, because it used to be, so wolves and domestic dogs and dingoes are Canis lupus, okay? That's their genus and species. But now they want to say this should be Canis something else, dingo or whatever they decide on it. Right now it's just a subspecies of Canis lupus, but they want to make it its own species.
You know, I looked up the history of the word dingo. Where did that word come from? It actually came from a tribal language near Sydney, Australia, and what dingo literally meant was tame dog. You know, like a pet of some sort. But of course, the English took that to be like a wild dog, and that's kind of what stuck. But you know, it's always interesting, you know, because people debated, you know, where did the dingoes come from? Were they originally somebody's domesticated dogs,
Right.
like from the Aborigines or someone that came down there? I don't know. It's you know, based on the name, there's a possibility there.
Because the dingoes can interbreed with other dogs.
They
Like if people have, you know.
Because they all have, actually, it's funny, with the exception of foxes, all dogs have 78 chromosomes. So they can interbreed very easily,
yeah.
whether you're talking dingoes or wolves or coyotes or domestic
Yeah, we've seen dogs
dogs
back where I'm from that interbred with the coyotes
Yeah,
and things like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's what's made it difficult. That's what sometimes makes it difficult to determine if dogs are different species, because even all domestic dogs are the same species. Like whether you're talking a Chihuahua or a Great Dane, and you think about the differences between them, but they're actually the same species, even though a wolf and a coyote that look very similar are actually different species.
Yeah.
So it's a bit arbitrary.
But
in my
hot dogs
opinion.
are different, right?
What is?
Hot dogs. Oh, come on.
Not if you're
They're
talking
probably
about
hot
not if
dogs
you're
when they're in
talking about a wiener
Australia.
dog.
yeah.
So, there are wiener-
Yeah,
but
so
the
they-
dingoes are helpful in Australian
Yes.
society. So they actually kill feral animals that then are hurting like the marsupials and the birds and the lizards,
Right,
like
and-
eating the eggs and things like that. So
And
They,
that
they
makes
throw
this a
the
bit of a
ecosystem out
political
of
issue
whack.
then,
So,
too.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
They even eat kangaroos.
Yeah.
Dingoes eat kangaroos. So, which is helpful.
That's all they need in Australia.
Yeah.
Something else that can kill everything.
Well, I always thought it was funny because Ken was talking one time about his brother and said his brother had a rhubarb, okay, on the front of his truck. And I thought, what is a rhubarb? Well, it's like, you know how we have the cow catchers or the deer, you know, the deer guards on front of our trucks? They have ones to guard against the kangaroos, because like we have
Roo.
deer,
That's
they
funny.
have kangaroos.
Kangaroos.
And so they're just hopping out in the middle of the road at all times. And like
And
the
they'll
deer
often
do.
like wreck fields that farmers have for raising
Yeah.
their cattle or whatever. So the dingoes are helpful because they kill the kangaroos and keep
Right.
help to keep the population in
Right.
check. So
Keep things
they're
in
an
check.
important
It's a
part of
part
the
of their
ecosystem.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Very.
just kind of highlights the species problem, this idea of how do we define species? Because things can interbreed with one another. You have like, wolves and coyotes that interbreed with one another. So are they species, are they not? And in a biblical worldview, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dingoes are part of the same created kind as domesticated dogs, as wolves, coyotes, etc. So it makes sense that they can interbreed, but it's only within the kind level. We never see different kinds breeding with one another, just different
We don't see dogs
species
turn
within
into
one
cats.
kind. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And usually that level of kind is about the level of family in our modern classification system,
Okay.
for the most part.
Going on.
All right. A second HIV patient has gone into remission after a stem cell transplant. So you were kind of a little bit geeking out about this one before we started because this one's pretty cool.
So this is being seen, at least preliminarily, as a person that had AIDS or HIV infection that has been gone completely into remission. And so what has happened was this guy had, I believe it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so he had to have a stem cell transplant. So they kind of wiped out his entire immune system and replaced it with blood cells from another donor. Now, the donor that he got the blood cells from has a mutation in what is called the CCR5 gene. And because of that, that is the receptor on the cells that HIV uses to get into immune system cells. Okay, that's what it uses. So if that receptor is not there or it's mutant, it cannot get into the cells. You could have HIV in your system, but it couldn't actually infect any of your cells. So when they did this, they wiped his immune system out, basically replaced it with someone else's. The HIV might still be in his blood, but it can't get into his cells now because it's been replaced with this donor's cells. So
And see,
it's
that's
really cool.
And that mutation, that's actually a loss of information.
It is.
And so it's actually not even an evolutionary change. It happens to be a loss, but it happens to be a beneficial outcome of that
But
loss
they
of
do
mutation.
tend to be, so people that have the CCR5 mutation tend to be more susceptible to West Nile virus and flu virus. So oddly enough, it's sort of an exchange. But those things you can typically get over better than you can HIV, obviously.
Yeah.
So
Well, apparently, statistically, as of 2017, there was 37 million people worldwide with AIDS or HIV.
So many people.
And just under about 2 million per year get infected.
yeah.
So,
So
I mean,
it's still a very,
growing,
very
We
common
don't hear as much
disease.
about it now as in the past, but
Right,
Yeah.
but they're still looking for it. Antiretroviral therapies work really well, but they'll never completely get rid of it, and people usually eventually die from AIDS. And so they're looking for ways to do this, maybe even engineering people's immune system cells to
Possibly.
express a mutant receptor, and that would be a good case for genetic engineering.
Well, apparently this happened back in 2009, where it was actually reported in the New England Journal of Medicine, where, a very similar situation occurred, and, they ended up going into remission as well. But I think they thought that was just like an odd event, what happened, we don't know.
yeah.
But now that they've seen it a second time, they go, hold on a second here, there may
Maybe
be
this
something
is-
to this. Which is kind of exciting.
so it'd be a
for
good
research,
avenue of
so.
research, yeah, for sure.
And it's good what we call observational science, is looking at science in the here and now. And like some people say creationists are anti-science. We're not anti-science. I'm a scientist. I love science. But this is talking about things that we can see in the here and now, and we're really ways to reverse the curse, in so many ways, a way to go up against the fall and what it's caused in people, and we want to see that. So.
Absolutely.
Good.
All right, one last one here.
Hi, Laura. Laura, my friend, said a shout out to me. So she's in South Dakota where it's absolutely freezing. So
All right, you want me to read the title of this one?
yeah, you
since
have
I
the title.
it?
My article
Yeah,
doesn't
All
have
right.
the title.
A Colorado Springs wrestler made history when he knocked himself out of the state tournament rather than wrestle a girl.
It's a very short title.
Yeah, yeah.
So this article is about a young man who, like the title said, ended up forfeiting at a wrestling, basically a state wrestling championship because he didn't want to have to wrestle a girl, and the opponent he was going up against was a girl.
Yeah. And I say kudos to that young man because that had to not be easy because he got there for a reason. He's a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And he actually had already forfeited, I think,
I think
5 times.
four-
He had
four
6
times,
losses. 5 of those were forfeits to a girl because he refused to wrestle her. And he said, I'm not going to show, because there's a lot of physical contact on the mat, and that's one reason. The second reason is I don't want to show physical aggression for a woman because I respect her, and men should not be doing these kinds of things to women, physically aggressing against them.
Right.
Duh. Should be a given, but sadly it isn't in our society today.
Now, I think she still wanted to wrestle him, but
She did.
Yeah, oh yeah, she wanted to. And she ended up, because he
So
forfeited.
girls have no problem
she-
trying to wrestle the guys and hold them down. And,
So she became the first girl to ever qualify for a podium finish at a Colorado high school state
Mm-hmm.
wrestling tournament because he forfeited. So
Yeah,
that
but
got
see,
her.
that to
so-
me, if I was that girl, I mean, that's not much of a win. You win
think
because
she was
other
too
people
happy about
refuse to
it.
wrestle you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see how that shows a lot.
Yeah.
But I like what the wrestler said, though, the
Mm-hmm.
guy that refused. He said, wrestling is something we do. It's not who we are. So he said, I'm cool with this because wrestling is not my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And he does seem to have some religious beliefs. I don't know exactly what those are, but he's saying my identity is in something else. It's
Mm-hmm.
not in wrestling. And so I think that's so important too, the place of sports and the place of all of
Right.
this and how he can do this with a clear conscience and not even really bothering him because he knows he's doing it for the
Mm-hmm. He
right
said there's
reason.
more important things to me in my life than wrestling, and I'm willing to have those priorities. So good for him to be willing to sacrifice winning an important competition
Right.
in order to stand up for what he believes in. And
right. Now, one of the arguments presented to him was, well, don't look at it like it's a girl. It's just it's a wrestler versus a wrestler.
yeah.
And that, you know, and but I mean, there's a logical fallacy behind all that. I mean, consider if somebody took a bear or a Komodo dragon and threw it, well, just go wrestle it. This is a wrestler versus a wrestler.
Right, yeah.
You know, but it's really not.
Right,
There's
yeah.
a difference, and that's
There is
something
a difference.
they say women want to be equal with men. I'm not against that. I'm all for women's equality. That doesn't mean we need to be the same.
Right, yes.
Sameness is not good, on the other hand, and that's not what equality means.
Yes.
And so that's the issue that we have here.
Right.
someone in the comments was asking if the girl that he wouldn't wrestle was a transgender person. No, it was just,
She was just a girl wanting to wrestle, yeah.
who
No.
was in the wrestling
Yeah.
competition.
A
But-
couple of resources here that I wanted to point out. You know, we deal with a lot of social issues on this particular show. So we actually have a pocket guide. We have a number of different pocket guides, I think maybe 13, 14, 15 of them. But one of them is particularly on social issues. So we want to encourage people to consider this resource. It's great. In fact, it's just great to witness with this as well.
Right.
Get a bunch of copies and pass them out. Also, we have a book, Dr. Doug Kelly put this book out. This is actually an updated and revised edition of an older book that he had done called Creation and Change, and he really expanded it. This is a powerful book.
It was one of the first books I read
Yeah.
as a young Earth creationist, and really understanding what the Bible says about it and really breaking it down. It is
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's called Creation and Change, and Dr. Doug Kelly, he's a professor at Reformed Theological Seminary, and he runs through quite a number of issues, particularly pertaining to the early
Yeah.
pages of Genesis. But what I liked about this book is he really dives into some pretty serious meat. And,
does, yeah.
a lot of people love reading this to dive into all sorts of details and get it from his theological background perspective. So it really is a good book, Creation and Change. But
All right.
I think we are...
We're out of
Out of time for today.
All
So
right.
we will be back on
Thursday.
Thursday. I'm like, was
Thursday.
it Monday or Thursday today? The time change just messed with me. I don't remember. Thursday
That's only
at
an
2
hour
p.m.
off.
I
Come on.
know. Hopefully you can join us then. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
God bless you guys.